my friend. Thank you. Way to go. Way to go. Felt good to get way to go. Way to go. What a job. Oh, you're fabulous. Great job. You dying. Really nervous. I was okay. You're okay. And it's so nervous for me. You know, he was just acting so that I just figured, be careful. Oh, yeah. I ain't seen that.
That was Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan earlier today on an airport tarmac in Columbus, Ohio, pointing at something and ixnaying any awking tay about the abate day because of that microphone may. What they were pointing at there, what Mitt Romney was alerting Paul Ryan to there about these was a suspicious-looking boom mic that was hovering up above, that was capturing what Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan were saying. The point where Mr. Romney interrupted Mr. Ryan was when he said, you know, he was just acting so... And then Romney jumped in, careful, ixnay on the awking tay. At his first post-debate appearance today in Wisconsin, Vice President Joe Biden took the final topic of last night's debate, the issue of abortion rights, and he hit Paul Ryan with it pretty forcefully.
If anyone had a doubt about what's at stake in this election when it comes to women's rights and the Supreme Court, I'm sure they were settled last night. It was made clear last night that they don't believe in protecting a woman's access to health care. It was made very clear that they do not believe a woman has a right to control her own body. These guys have a social policy out of the 50s.
That was Joe Biden's first major campaign appearance today after last night's big event with Paul Ryan. Now, Paul Ryan's first public appearance after last night's debate was not that moment on the tarmac with Mitt Romney with the funny microphone. It was actually this. His campaign did one of those odd, way too personal things where they allow the press in to witness his family doing an otherwise normal family thing, in this case eating breakfast. But it quickly becomes an awkward, not at all normal interaction because of all the press that are there. And everybody's trying to pretend like it's normal, but it really is not.
So how did Biden do, you think?
I felt great about it.
Were you knocked around by him? Did you feel knocked around by him?
No, it's what I expected. All right.
Do you regret sending those 2 letters to him for the budget?
I'll get into it later. We're going to eat breakfast now.
Obviously, his family should be allowed to eat breakfast in peace, and he should be allowed to peruse the menu in order. But the campaign did allow these reporters in to watch them eating breakfast, and he did agree to at least start taking questions from them. And you can't really be shocked that what the reporters wanted to ask about was that stimulus moment, the biggest oof moment of the entire debate, which we will play for you in just a moment. But I think even as people realize that that stimulus moment, the letters thing, was probably the most devastating moment of the debate last night, I think the more important thing here is that moment itself fits a pattern. It is about this problem with Paul Ryan's brand, which I think earned him the vice presidential nomination. Paul Ryan's brand as a serious, principled policy guy, right? The more attention that Paul Ryan's record gets, the less that brand for him makes sense, to an almost ridiculous degree now. And some of these things got called out last night directly by Joe Biden in front of that giant TV audience. But not all of them got called out. I mean, I should say it this way. The first one happened right away, right at the top of the debate, where you could see this huge distance between what Paul Ryan says he believes and how he has behaved when he has had choices to make about these things that he says he has these beliefs about. So this was the beginning of last night's debate on the topic of Libya.
When we look weak, our adversaries are much more willing to test us. They're more brazen in their attacks, and our allies are less willing to trust us.
With all due respect, that's a bunch of malarkey.
And why is that so?
Because not a single thing he said is accurate. First of all...
Be specific.
I will be very specific. Number one, this lecture on embassy security. The congressman here cut embassy security in his budget by $300 million below what we asked for.
That is true. Paul Ryan's House Republican caucus, where he is the budget guy, proposed slashing hundreds of millions of dollars in funding for embassy security last year. So Paul Ryan is there saying this embassy security has been under-resourced. Paul Ryan proposes cutting hundreds of millions of dollars from embassy security. That little perfect instance of hypocrisy, as well as the stimulus hypocrisy, were the things that got called out most overtly last night. But there are a ton of these problems in Mr. Ryan's record, and there's never been a brighter spotlight on it than there was last night. Like, there was this exchange on the military.
You don't cut defense by $1 trillion. That's what we're talking about. This invites weakness. Look, do we believe in peace through strength? You bet we do. And that means you don't impose these devastating cuts on our military.
Devastating cuts on our military. When Paul Ryan last night condemned those defense cuts as some nefarious Democratic idea that he is fighting valiantly against, he did not mention that he voted in favor of those exact same defense cuts. Also, on the issue of Medicare, I mean, maybe it's been said enough now that it doesn't need to be said every time, but once again at the debate, Paul Ryan pounded his chest and criticized Democrats for a change in Medicare funding that he's denouncing on the campaign trail and last night as a $716 billion cut to Medicare. Well, that's a cut to Medicare that he put in his own Paul Ryan budget. You can be for that thing or you can be against that thing, but you cannot simultaneously be for that thing and against that thing. Not if we are supposed to take you seriously on policy, which is supposedly the whole idea of you. Which brings us to the issue of the stimulus. Today, TiVo said, not your personal TiVo, but like TiVo the company, said that this was one of the top 2 most watched moments in last night's debate.
Look at just the $90 billion in stimulus. And the vice president was in charge of overseeing this. $90 billion in green pork to campaign contributors and special interest groups.
I love my friend here. I'm not allowed to show letters, but go on our website. He sent me 2 letters saying, by the way, can you send me some stimulus money for companies here in the state of Wisconsin? We sent millions of dollars. You know why he said
You did ask for stimulus money,
Sure he
correct?
did. By the way,
on 2 occasions, we advocated for constituents who are applying for grants. That's what we do. We do that for all constituents who are applying.
I love that. I love that. This is such a bad program, and he writes me a letter saying, writes the Department of Energy a letter saying, the reason we need this stimulus, it will create growth and jobs. His words. And now he's sitting here looking at me.
The other nice additional hypocritical element of that is when he says green pork at the top, which I think is supposed to sound as disgusting as it is. It's the idea that there would be alternative energy, green energy stimulus projects. The Associated Press today published the letter specifically for Paul Ryan asking for green pork stimulus funding for his district. Specifically, like electric cars and stuff, Paul Ryan was begging for that money. There is a pattern of hypocrisy here. Paul Ryan gets all of this credit as being a principled guy who stands by his convictions. But that brand is not supported by his record. And that has been true of his record forever, as long as he has tried to do that as a congressman, but campaign a different way. It's always been true of him, but now it is finally getting pointed out on live TV in front of 50 million people. Here's the other thing, though. What you just saw in that clip was Joe Biden sort of teaching other Democrats, I think, that you can actually defend Democratic policies. You can actually defend even the stimulus. You can defend the stimulus as good policy that even Republicans admit is good policy, instead of just leaving it out there as low-hanging political fruit that you are refusing to pick because the Republicans have said mean things about it. Joe Biden did not call out Paul Ryan on all of these instances of hypocrisy last night, but he did call him out on his hypocrisy and on the malarkey of their argument against the stimulus bill. Democrats have been totally afraid to run on the success of the stimulus. But by hitting Paul Ryan on it like Joe Biden did last night, maybe this opens up some new political territory for Democrats to take advantage of. We'll talk about that next with the great Chris Hayes.